Hello, I'm Forrest Shaw, and I've got a problem. Today, my guest is Rob Dukes. Rob is the vocalist of the legendary thrash band Exodus, also Generation Kill. Exodus's new album, Goliath, comes out March 20th, so next week, yeah. Find Rob Dukes on his Instagram. It's at Rob_Dukes. You can also find Exodus Band Official on Instagram and Generation Kill Band on Instagram. Rob, thanks for being here. What's your problem?
My brain is trying to kill me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
join the club.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always that's the answer. Yeah.
I think everybody's brain's trying to kill them in one way or another.
Yeah, man. Mine's a fucking motherfucker. He's such a liar, piece of shit sometimes. And then, sometimes it works fine. You know what I mean? Where I think he takes naps or something and it lets me have a little bit of reprieve. But for the most part, man, I am, for years I had an apartment and I lived in New York, and on the mirror it said, "You're looking at the problem." Because it was always me. It was always like just something that just I had to constantly be aware of my actions in situations. You know what I mean? And I had this ability to lie to myself, believe the lies, and then act on them, and that put me in some really just fucked up situations that lessons I wish I didn't have to learn, but I guess I did.
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone genderize a brain before. Your brain is male. I mean, I get it. Like, but I just usually would just say it or the, but he is. That's usually reserved for like sexual organ or something like that.
Yeah. I've never even pondered that question, but I just, he just seems like a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Like like women can be assholes, but not on the level of like, how, we're just disgusting fucking creatures sometimes. You know what I mean? I forget what comedian said it. I think it might've been Burr. He said like, if women could read our minds, man, they would fucking kill themselves. You know what I mean? Something, because we're just fucking, I'm just, I'm just demented, you know what I mean? And I have, and then, but I also have like, I have a puppy that I love more than anything on planet Earth. And it's just pure love, and it never judges. And it just, and I've never felt this way about a dog in my life, man. I've had dogs before. I've had cats my whole life and dogs my whole life, and this dog, maybe because I found her at a truck stop abandoned at 4 weeks old, that it just, maybe that connection is there. But she is just, she brings out a side of me that I didn't know was there. I mean, I start talking about her and I get weepy. When I talk about how I found her and the whole story, I become emotional because it's the connection is so. I've never had a connection like this with another dog before, and
last time I saw you, we talked about our dogs.
Yeah, we talked about dogs for like an hour.
And he's right next to me right now. So, and first of all, it was a Buc-ee's, not a truck stop. Let's not.
It was a buck stop. It was a Buc-ee's.
Great Buc-ee's. The term truck stop, right?
It was the original Buc-ee's, the very first one in Luling, Texas, and I named her Lulu because the town was called Luling. I'm like, all right, shit, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then last time I saw you too, I didn't know. Not that like. I guess in most formats I've seen you, drinks never would have been involved, but I didn't know that you didn't drink, and because you went to the bathroom and the guy came back and was like, brought a Arnold Palmer to the table.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that? Like, and I'll get whatever that is. And he goes, it's an Arnold Palmer. I go, oh yeah, I'll have that. Cause I mean, I'm not a big drinker. I mean, I do drink stuff, but I'm not a big drinker, but I was like, oh, that sounds better than having a beer or something. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really, it's such not a part of my life that like people around me, I don't look like a guy who doesn't drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm constantly in bars. I smoke cigars, so cigar lounges all have booze in them, and and uh, yeah, on tour, I kind of, I hang out as a band does, but then I have moments where I find my own little personal space, and I read a lot, and it's such not a part of my life that I forget that people don't even associate it with it. You know what I mean? I don't openly talk about it too much. It's a personal thing. I mean, my all my friends around me, that I've made since I moved to Arizona and ten years ago. Um, they all aren't drinkers. They drink, but they not to excess it at any point. I think I've been hanging out with my friend Brad for like 6 years. I've seen him drunk twice, and both were golfing events that he went to, and for some reason he got drunk, and that's the only time. We hang out a few nights a week and smoke cigars, and they drink. We drink Arnold Palmers, and that's just the drink of Arizona here I never drank before I moved here, and I love them, and but nobody ever. Quick story: I went to Doug Stanhope's house, and Doug was like, "You don't fucking drink," and I'm like, "No." And I had brought a couple NA beers, the Heineken Zeros, and I was drinking one of those, and then I switched. I don't really like them that much. I drink one or two like once a year or something. So I drank a couple just to be you know just to be part of the table of everyone drinking. And then after a while, everyone forgets that I don't drink, and it just they just it doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? I'm just part of the conversation. We were playing darts and we were hanging out. I was at his house for a couple days, and he kind of breaks my balls about every now and again, but very rarely. You know what I mean? Because I'm still a fun guy to hang out with. I assume, and it doesn't. It's not a part of. It's never a part of my life. So it's just not a thing I even really think about, because we've hung out a bunch of times and it's never come up before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not that type of person
Yeah.
anyways. It'd be like, "You
Yeah.
nothing to do a shot? What are you, pussy?" Like, I'm just and I'm not even that type of guy anyway.
Yeah.
And you also met me later in my life. Like, when I was younger, I was like drugs, alcohol, not like
Yeah.
it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was bigger part of my life. But when did you, was there like a point like where you were like, because I don't even know the history of it, like where you were like, it was a problem and you were like, I got to stop this, or?
Oh yeah, man. I started drinking around 15, and I stopped when I was 25. So I drank for 10 years. And in in 4 days I'll have been sober 33. Um but I in the 10 years, I started out. I was a blackout drinker from the very first time I drank. Me and two friends had a bottle of Jack Daniels that his older brother bought for us, and we each drank a third. And I blacked out. I don't remember shit. I woke up with a black eye. I guess we were fighting, got in a fight, and just yeah, it was like. And I drank like that for 10 years. I was a maniac. I ended up. Arrested a lot, and a lot of fights, and a lot of just trouble just followed me everywhere. And I did a lot of drugs. I did a lot of psychedelic, a lot of LSD, and smoked a lot of weed, and then I had a coke habit for like a year at some point. And then, I mean, to be honest, there's like a 2 year period of my drinking that it's like they're like fractured memories. Like it was like a 2 year blackout where I dealt drugs, which paid my minimal bills at the time in the early 90s, late 80s. And so I was it was just all the time every day, and there's like a 2 year period where I don't remember like huge swaths of time that are just gone. Like I've been to concerts that I don't remember going to. I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan once, don't remember going. Uh, Took Quaaludes and vodka on the way there, and don't remember. I woke up at home. I remember driving there, and then I woke up at home and saw Stevie Ray Vaughan and don't remember going. And that happened a lot. I mean, I was always calling friends the next day, going, "Sorry about last night. Sorry I ruined the party. Sorry I got in a fight." You know, so you know, and it had run its course with me. I was in I was living in a really crazy, violent guy, and I fucking hated myself. I've you know, but I got to a point where it didn't work anymore. Like now, I was drinking just to fucking shut my fucking brain up. Just because it really. That's why I always say my brain was trying to fucking kill me. It really was. It was, it told me awful things and it made me feel bad all the time. I never felt comfortable in my own skin, and it was a fucking nightmare. And eventually, it stopped working, and I didn't even know there was help. I didn't even realize that there was help at any point. And um, I got really I got lucky. You know, uh, it's. Do you want to hear the story of the last night I drank?
Sure.
Okay. So the last night I drank was one of the biggest snowstorms in New York history. It was March 13th, 1993, and um I was drinking uh, vodka in a Mexican. It was actually a Puerto Rican bar. It was like it was a Puerto Rican neighborhood, and it was a Puerto Rican bar, and I was in there with a leather jacket, jeans, and a fucking overkill t-shirt. I had hair down to my waist, and I was just wasted. I was just such a fucking crazy person. Huge beard and just out of my mind. And I was so fucked up. I just started walking home through this massive snowstorm, and it was probably 5 miles to my house. It wasn't even a house. I had rented an apartment. It was a shitty one-bedroom studio apartment with, a mattress on the floor. I didn't have a box spring. I had no TV. I just had a fucking cassette player at the time, and it was just really just, I mean, just disgusting, man. I mean, it, I remember having to, trudge my fucking laundry to the laundromat. I was just living in squalor and just barely making it by because I was barely functioning at this point. And I'd always been a functioning alcoholic. I always had jobs and was able to, support myself. But I got to a point where I was just falling apart. So I start walking home, and like I said, it's this huge snowstorm. There's probably a foot of snow on the ground. There's no cars. It's just snow plows. That's all it was. This is New York. And I stepped out in front of a snowplow, hoping he would fucking run me over.
Mm.
And he yelled at me out the window and called me a bunch of names and then drove around me. And I was just stumbling, fucked up. And I had an 8 ball of Coke in my pocket. So I was like doing Coke and drinking 151 after a night of drinking vodka. And I always had a fifth of 151 on me. That was my favorite drink. And it was just, I remember just walking, and I was walking on this road, and it had come to like an incline, you know, and one car started coming down the incline. And I actually said to myself, I really hope this guy runs out of control and runs me the fuck over. And cause I don't want to wake up anymore. I hated every day I woke up. Um, and he fucking comes down the hill, and I just stood there, and he actually stopped, and he said, "Hey man, what the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just going home." He's like, "Where are you going?" I told him where I was going, and he goes, "I'll take you home, man. Jump in." And he had this big old Chevy, like Catalina 4 door, and I jumped in the back, and him and his girl are up front. He goes, just got to make one stop, and then we'll head home. I'm like, okay. And I had a 40 ounce of king cobra, and he goes, he looked back at me and he went, "Just don't puke." And I went, "Okay." And he starts driving, and we pull up to this place. I'm in the back seat, and his girl got out, and he stayed in the car, and we're sitting in the car, and he turned around, he looked at me, and he goes, "So what's your deal, man?" I was like, "I was hoping you were going to run me over, but you stopped." And he goes, "Do you want to get some help?" And I go, "There's no help in me, man." He goes, "Dude, slam that beer. Well, you got any drugs on you?" I go, "I got some coke." And he's like, "Do the coke, slam the beer, and take a walk with me." Um, and I did that, and then he goes, "All right, you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah." Uh, we got out of the car and we walked into this building, and what I realized in there was it was a hospital, and his girl was going to get she was going to the methadone clinic, and this is like 5 in the morning, and so she was going to get methadone, and he walked me to this room. A doctor came in. I don't remember what he asked me. I filled out some paperwork, and then I sat on a bench. His girl came out. We sat on these two benches, and they were talking to me. And then they said, "Okay, you ready to go?" And they said, "Go down to the end of the hall, and there's a door. Just press the buzzer." And he walked me down this long hall, and I felt like I was in a fucking Pink Floyd movie where I was the guy. You ever been to a Pink Floyd show where it's the guy strapped to the fucking bed and he's in the
Yeah.
hospital and it just goes on forever?
The wall. Yeah.
That's what it felt like, right? And we get to the door, and we press the buzzer, and this little fat nurse opens the door, and she goes, "Hey, look at you." And she goes, "Come on in." And the guy looked at me, and his girl gave me a hug, and the guy gave me a hug, and he goes, "Look, my name's Mike Bernstein, man. I wish you all the best." And they walked away, and I walked in, and it was a detox. And
Wow.
that was the last time I drank. I actually looked for Mike. I remember, I'll never forget his name. I looked for him for years. I even look for him to this day.
You haven't talked to him since then?
No, I never saw him again, man.
Holy cow.
I fucking, I looked for him, and I tried. I looked in the phone book. I never got in touch with him. I assume, if his girl was getting methadone, like they were probably living under the radar, but I always wanted to tell him thank you, and so I walked in
I
there,
want to find
and
them now for you. Like I want to find them and then like bring them to a concert while you're on stage and just make you cry in front of everybody.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it does choke me up, thinking about it. So the
and
first
also
day
like just going back to like I mean, it is amazing like that radar that people have too of like knowing like this person, especially if you're an alcoholic, drug addict, like whatever, like like I'm sure they're looking at you like, oh, this guy right here is
is,
a mess, needs
yeah,
help. Yeah.
yeah, I was a fucking mess, dude. I was a fucking mess. So, uh, the first day I'm in there, this guy comes in. His name's Bob, and Bob hands me a book, and he says, "Hey, read this." Now, you got to remember, I'm a fucking blackout drunk. But the whole time I was a blackout drunk, I was a voracious reader. I always read books. I didn't watch a lot of TV growing up. It wasn't a thing in my house, and I read constantly. So he said, "Read the book." So I fucking read it in like 3 4 hours. I read the whole book,
Yeah.
and I got to this page, and what I read was Doctor Max, and I can't remember his name, man, but he wrote this passage in the book, and it was everything I needed to hear right at that moment, and it was almost like this is what I want. This is what I want, and I was so fucking scared of everything because it was just fear of the unknown. And Bob took a he just took a liking to me. He was one of the counselors there, and he was a recovering alcoholic himself, and he took me like under, and he helped me see the light, and
But and you
I
stopped doing drugs then too? You stopped drinking, doing drugs
I never did. I know once I rang that buzzer on that door, I never did anything again. Once I got out of Mike's car, I never touched. I've never done anything again. Um, and you know,
And when did you?
for years, I was even afraid to take like codeine or anything. I was afraid to take anything. Even Tylenol was an issue. I for a long time, for like 4 years. You know, but then you know, as time goes on, you the demon really never rests, but it's definitely dissipates. You know what I mean? If you fill your life with other stuff, that it's you know, because basically, you know, like anything, man, you're trying to fill some fucking void that you have, and you're, you know, I was drinking because of other problems. It wasn't like the alcohol itself physically isn't addicting; it's a mental thing, and I followed everything they told me to do, man. I I spent 30 days in the rehab. I did 7 days in detox, and then I did 30 days in rehab, and I did 90 days in a halfway house. And I followed every rule. I did everything they said. I went above and beyond. And then I got a job. I found a place to live. I started working, and I learned how to live life, man. I mean, I learned how to live life without alcohol, which was the first couple years was really tough, man. I mean, I never wanted to drink, but I would rather have. I had definitely had suicidal thoughts the first couple years. It was really tough because I was dealing with stuff for the first time in my life that I'd never dealt with before. I'd always just either avoided or drank or avoided. It was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
You didn't have emotions. You were like,
no,
yeah.
and all of it was coming up, man. I mean, all of it was just it was just a fucking it was just a I mean, it was you know, the first couple years was tough, and then I think it took me the first 10 years to kind of be okay in my skin, and then the second decade, you know, from 10 to 20, I kind of I had a bunch of lessons to learn about myself. And the whole first 10 years I was going to therapy, and I was I worked, you know, as much as I could. I kept myself as busy as I could. I went through, you know, multiple things. I got a job as a mechanic, and then I was working on cars, but at home I wasn't really sleeping the first like year and a half. So I was collecting reptiles, and I would listen to music. I didn't have a TV, and you know, uh, I started, you know, watching hockey a lot, and I got really obsessed with hockey and stats and all that. And I would do anything other than try to sit in quiet. That was the worst time. Was just sitting in that meditative quiet place was really tough for a lot of years. And therapy just kind of I had this therapist named George, and he walked me through my demons. And I can't say I was fearless, but I definitely fucking took some risks with him, which I had never taken before. Backstep a little bit. I come from a broken home. My parents split up when I was like 2 or 3. I was very young, and I got switched from one family member to another constantly. And I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust any human being on earth. And when I was finally able to, as a teenager, find a way out of that, was drinking. And I didn't trust anybody I hung out with. I didn't trust anyone until I quit drinking, and I met Bob. His name was Bob Matthews, and Bob was the first person that I just bared my soul to, because I felt like I was cornered. Like I felt like if I didn't tell him the the truth of everything I was thinking, I was going to drink again. And I so desperately at that time didn't want to drink. I was terrified of it. Not that I was terrified of walking into a bar and drinking. I was terrified of going back to that guy. I at the end, I really, as I became on, my brain started to clear out. I realized what a horrible human being I had become, and alcohol had driven me there. And I did never wanted to go back to that guy. You
Yeah,
know.
hold on here. So I want to ask you,
Okay.
if I recall from the podcast we did, I don't know about that podcast. You were a roadie first, right? Where you worked in the crew before you started performing, right? Is that
Yeah, I was well, I had been in bands and stuff. I was a guitar player. I played in bands and um I
okay?
even bartended. I bartended sober. I you
Did
know,
you tour like with those bands? I mean,
I
like you
did.
were,
I did. I
yeah,
toured.
okay,
I was a roadie for Exodus for a 6-week tour. And at the end of the tour, I got up on stage with them and I sang one song. And then they asked me to come audition to be the singer because their singer had quit. And I went up there. I went up to San Francisco and auditioned. I was living in LA at the time, and I went up there, auditioned, and they gave me the gig. And now I was the singer of this fucking band that I used to go see as a teenager. I was this band I loved, you know what I mean? I fucking
yeah.
loved Exodus, you know? And so now I get this opportunity and now I have to live on a tour bus with, you know, people that are, you know, and that world is a lot of partying. And
That's what I wanted to ask because
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
comedy is tough enough as it is. If
yeah,
you for any, I mean,
yeah,
I'm a gambler, and trust me, I'm in casinos. I'll be in a casino in a couple days in Las Vegas for a
yeah,
whole week, you know. So that's, but
yeah,
I imagine the environment of a touring band, um, especially like a metal band, it's like, you know, something like that too, is
yeah.
like there's just alcohol and drugs abound, you know.
And they're free, man, and they're
Yeah.
free. People want to give you stuff and give you, and
So that's
you know,
tough, or
man,
is that like, are you like
no,
strong enough at that point where you're just like, this is, I already know who I am, I'm
I,
comfortable, and yeah,
I at that point I already knew who I was. I was comfortable in my own skin. I I had done the work that allowed. I had done the work that allowed me to be a bartender. I was a bartender up until a year ago. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
bartended. I have a regular job, and if I was bartending part time and just hanging out at a cigar bar and you know and bartending, and from time to time I was like a fill in guy at my buddy's bar, and you know, I've never been afraid of it because I'm a grown fucking adult. So I can fucking walk into any store at any time and buy exactly what I want. I just, I think I don't, they say it's a slippery slope to say you're secure with it, but I know who I am. And, I like my life and I liked my life for the last 20 years. So there's no fucking way that I would do anything to risk what I have. I would never, I mean, because I do know this about myself that my dog that I love so much and loves me more than anything would become second. You know, alcohol just became, drugs became the main thing all the time. And everything I love would go away and everything I care about and all the people around me wouldn't, they wouldn't want me around anymore.
yeah,
And that is enough to keep me grounded in exactly who I am. So like when I'm on the tour bus, you know, there's a lot of partying. Exodus are fucking known for being crazy, and they are. They're, you know, it's funny that all the guys in the band that do party. It's weird that when they I so especially the guitar player Lee, he's a you know, he loves tequila and vodka, and he's you know, Ukrainian, and he's that guy, you know. And but when he goes home, it's like a switch. He gets on the tour bus and he turns on a switch, and then he's a partier. And then right before he gets off the bus to go home, he turns the switch off. He doesn't drink at home. I've stayed at his house multiple, you know, for while we were recording a whole record one time. I stayed at his house for like 2 months, and he doesn't drink at home. He doesn't.
mm,
He doesn't. It's weird how there are certain people that can drink and party and have a good time, but they're not alcoholics. They're not like I was. It wasn't it was, I mean, it was my identity, man. It's what
yeah.
I was known for. And that guy sucks. That guy sucks. And I don't want him around anymore, man. So I have enough things in my life that keep me grounded that I'm not in fear of that. When I'm on the bus and I get sick of the party, I go to my bunk and I close the shade and I rock and read a book and I put my headphones in and you know, I have my ways out. You know what I mean? During the day when we're all just hanging out, I go find a coffee shop somewhere and read a book and go for a walk and go look at the city I'm in or whatever. Never once in the, you know, almost 33 years that I have have I said I should drink over this situation. Like I've had friends die. I've had, you know, horrible things happen in my life, tough things, tough human normal things that everybody goes through. And some people, drink over them, and some people go to therapy, and some people just they find their way out. And um I'm a you know I'm a big motorcycle guy. That gives me a lot of solace and a lot of uh time where in my own head where I can work out things that are going on. um you know about 6 years ago, I started smoking cigars, and they gave me the same feeling, this relaxation for an hour. A cigar. Like me and you went and smoked. We went, and I had a cigar, and that's my moment of just quiet reflection. Listen to music, watch a hockey game. It just relaxes me, and that's my
Yeah.
vice now.
Couple of Arnold
Is
Palmers in a
a
cigar bar.
couple.
We were really
Yeah.
partying it up. I didn't even smoke a cigar. You smoked a cigar. We had two Arnold Palmers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was. I had a good time. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
whole thing. It's like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a good night. So it wasn't
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, yeah.
it is funny though. Like I did. I get you said it at the beginning. I don't look like a guy that doesn't drink, and that's probably why when they brought the Arnold Palmer, I go, yeah, I just assumed you were like drinking, doing drugs, but
Yeah.
you do look like a
Yeah.
guy that would collect reptiles though too. So
Yeah.
that's trash. I have to say
That
that.
lasted about a year, and then I
Uh,
got so crazy. I had a fucking cobra at one point, and I was like, "This is nuts, dude! Like, what am I doing?"
fuck,
And,
Cobra.
I had a cobra, and I got rid of everything. I got rid of
You
the
can't
cobra.
even pet a cobra. You just like look at it,
No,
right?
just look at it. Yeah,
Mm.
that's all I did. I had it for about 3 months, and then one day I was like, I don't want this anymore, man. It was hard every time something moved in my room. I would have to turn the light on and make sure he's still in the cage. It was just it got I got insane. I was looking at that point for anything to take me out of my brain, and it was a full-time job. I mean, I had about 30 different reptiles. So it was a full-time job to go to work all day, then go home, shower, eat, and then start cleaning cages. And you could do 4 or 5 at a night, but by the time you got to the last one, you had to start all over again. It was like a full-time gig, but it got me through that first year of sobriety. Um, and then I think I think I like this, like I got rid of all the snakes and everything. And then I got a motorcycle, and then I started doing like like 300-400 mile trips by myself. And then I met my buddy Lenny, and me and Lenny started taking long trips together, and we would go ride in upstate New York and New Hampshire and Connecticut and Vermont, and and I just found guys that were doing that. I just found that was like my new thing. I've ridden a motorcycle across the United States 8 times. Um, and and I've never taken the same route. I've like always found like a different way to go. And
Hey, you told me
that's
that last time, and I was like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't. I would. It seems like that'd be tiring on your body on a
It
motorcycle.
does. It is. But there's something about it, man. There was just something about, because when you're on the bike, I don't have the helmet that you can answer your phone and listen to music. It was just me and the motor. And I did it. I did it once. I had about 10 years of sobriety, and I got on my bike. I gave away everything I owned. I let my friend live in my apartment, and I gave him everything, all my furniture. I gave him everything, and I took what I could take on the bike, and I took off, and I moved to LA. And um and I started my life there. And that it took me about 4 months. I'd gotten a couple jobs along the way, a couple like, construction jobs, and just kind of, staying at this one town for a little while. And I stayed in another town for a little while. I was getting tattooed, and I was fucking, I was just on a journey with myself. And I think when I got to LA, there was like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders of all this stuff that I was carrying, and being inside the helmet alone, the motor, the wind, and just being on roads that were, I mean, I was doing it all with paper map. I didn't have I had a cell phone, but for emergencies, one of those old Nokias, but it was all paper maps. And I really wasn't talking to anyone because I didn't, I'd stop for gas, and then I'd have a coffee, and then I'd go on to the next one. And I was always staying in, seedy, cheap hotels, and I was rolling my motorcycle into the fucking hotel so it wouldn't get stolen. And I did that for a few months, and I ended up New York to LA is like what, 3,000 miles. I put 15,000 miles on my bike. So I fucking did like, I was just doing like, just, adventures. Like, I'm going to go here, and I pick a spot on the map, and I figure out how to go there. And it was just, but it was fucking soothing, man. There was something, just real cathartic about it. It was just, you know, it was, it's the same thing as meditation. Like, meditation is, certain people do it certain ways, and my meditation is on a motorcycle. My meditation can, I can just sit, and I have this mantra I say in my head, and I do that often, and it's just a way to kind of center myself, because the thing about, you know, your brain is it never shuts the fuck up. My brain never shuts the fuck up. It's hard to sit there and not think about anything. I guess that's why people smoke pot, because when people tell me they smoke pot, they don't think about anything. And my brain just never stops. So I've always looked for moments, and I find those moments in little sequences, where, like, being on a bike, if a turn's coming up and I'm riding fast, and uh, just taking risks, and you're so hyper focused on that you're not thinking about, you know, other shit that's bothering you,
Yeah. When you
whatever
look
it
back,
is.
like when you were drinking and stuff like that, do you think there was like a problem that you were like that either you were trying to solve, or like just something specifically that you were like running from, or do you think it was just
Yeah, I think, you know, it's if it was loneliness, man. I mean, I just felt alone in the world. Like I said, my parents, both of them left. I ended up at my grandparents, and when you're, you know, 4 and 5 years old, man, I eh, you know, knowing that about myself, I assume that I didn't handle it well. I turned everything inward, and I stopped trusting anyone, and I didn't tell anybody anything. My grandparents were really bad alcoholics. I lived in the house with them. I would get on my bike in the morning and ride, 20 miles to the beach, and then ride home. And as long as I got home for dinner and didn't, then the police didn't come. They didn't bother me, and um, it was a very lonely, existence that I had, and I think that spawned it. The one thing I did find, I mean, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I started listening to music, and my uncle had given me a bunch of records, and I started listening to music, and lyrics meant so much to me, very early on. um, and there were songs that I connected to, and music became like the one thing that I had, that I didn't have to trust anybody, I didn't have to tell anybody, I didn't have to talk about it. I could just listen, and music became this huge thing in my life. Plus, I read a lot, so I was like in fantasy worlds of reading books, and and just, that was a really good way to fill that loneliness, was just constantly reading, book after book after book, and reading books that were probably above my brain level, but I was reading them anyway because they were around. But I was listening, at 8 years old, I was listening to, Black Sabbath, The Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. And I used to sit there. This is back when it was vinyl, and almost all the bands, you'd pull out the sleeve and put the record on, and the inner sleeve had all the lyrics. and I would read along with them, Rick, real slow. I'd listen to the song and I'd read along with the lyrics. And there were lyrics that jumped out at me and stuck with me my whole life. And even to this day, when I hear those records, it takes me back to that time. And but for myself, everybody has their own demons. I think mine was just a feeling of, all the people that were supposed to care for me and take care of me left and didn't love me and didn't give a shit. So that eventually turned to anger. And then when that anger and that disappointment and that loneliness, when I poured alcohol on it, it kind of all went away because I'd say at first when I first started drinking, I was kind of like David Lee Roth. I was kind of like really fun to be around. I was crazy. I drove fast. I had hot rods, and I was I was kind of a maniac. And then eventually it turned into I was a detriment to society on every level, and it changed and it stopped. It was no longer fun. It was out of necessity, and so you know once I stopped drinking and I started going to therapy and I started tackling those demons that were you know uh that had put me on that path in the first place. And look, I mean, I know I've met alcoholics who had a great life. They had great parents who loved them very much, and they just fucking turned out the way they did. I don't know if it's the the DNA in my body that alcohol makes me a certain way, or what it was. Um, I think the cards were stacked against me a little, but you know, watching my grandparents die from alcoholism. Um, it was tragic because they were such good people and smart fucking people. My grandparents were super smart. And but they just drank themselves to death. And I watched it. I took care of them at one point in my life where they were couldn't take care of themselves anymore, and it was them and me, and I took care of them, and it's nothing that a 10-year-old kid should be doing. But I didn't know any difference. I didn't have any friends. I didn't hang out with anyone, and I didn't realize that other people's lives were different than mine. And I guess I just assumed that everybody lived the way I did, and I didn't know any different. The only things I knew were different were the stories I was reading, but they were all made up. So, who the fuck knows? And
Mm.
but once I took an honest look at all that, um, the demons became less and less powerful, and I was able to um, see my part in things, especially during my drinking years. I had a lot of people to apologize to, and part of being sober was doing that. Part of it was making amends with people who I had hurt and I had harmed, and it included my parents who, you know. For a while, I mean, I was really angry at them. I didn't talk to my dad for like 10 years. And, now me and my dad talk constantly. I mean, um, I lost um, all that time. Sorry. With them, and they're such beautiful people, and they were really young when they had me, and they made their mistakes, and I had to come to a place of forgiveness and let go of the resentment that I had for them, and realize that they were just people who who just made mistakes, and once I could learn to forgive them, I started forgiving myself for all the mistakes that I made, and it just became this beautiful thing. And now I talk to my parents constantly. I mean, and, they were the first phone calls I made when I came back to this tour and from Canada. And my birthday was yesterday, so I got a million fucking phone calls and texts and everything. And the only people I talked to were my mom, and my dad, and everyone else I just texted back. But I remember having um, a certain amount of time sober, and I drove to my dad's house, and I sat at a table on his deck, and I apologized for being a shitty son. And we both broke down, and he apologized for being a shitty dad. And you know what? At that moment, it all went away. And then I left his house and I drove to my mom's and I did the same fucking thing. And me and my mom sat there for hours, and drank coffee and cried and talked and you know, it was like a huge, like once again, it was like this huge weight lifted off of me, and my skin wasn't uncomfortable anymore. And that's what, you know what? That's the answer to the question of, why I don't drink on tour and why I've never been afraid of it. Because I would never take those moments and ruin them for an alcohol for alcohol. I would never ruin those moments, those beautiful human moments that I've had with them.
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right, I'm gonna ask you see these questions here. Thanks for sharing that. That was really good. Um, so seems trivial now after this, but I think you kind of answered. Maybe this is you already answered this with Michael
Yeah,
Bernstein. What's a small thing someone did that helped you more than they know? But they might know that. But
Michael Bernstein, dude. He just,
yeah,
I mean, are you fucking kidding me, dude? I want him to run me over, and he fucking and save my
yeah.
life. Yeah, so
I
yeah.
hope you meet him again someday. That
I
would be
really hope I do too, man. I would love to just give that guy a hug and just say thank you. You know, um, I've never forgotten his name. I mean, never. I mean, he crosses my mind every year around this time when I think about my first day sober. He's always on my mind. It's funny. It's like 5 days away from my sobriety date, and it used to, for years, like the whole month leading up to this day, March 13th, was always a really tough month because I would be reminded of all the demons, and I'd be reminded of all the shit, and all the dark stuff, and it would all just start flooding back. And then the day would come, and I'd be like, all right, I got through another year. And then on to the next. And you know
yeah.
but this is the first year I can say that it's not been it had, I just came from a tour where I was opening up for Megadeth and Anthrax, man, right? So I was playing to sold out fucking arenas, and I was on stage in front of 20,000 people. And it's hard to be sad when you're doing that.
Yeah.
I guess it was a fun fucking tour, and I'm headed to Europe next week for 5 weeks. And those are the gifts that I've been given, man. I've been given this gift, and I'm not going to trade it in for nothing, man. I'm not gonna trade it in for a night of partying. So yeah.
What song best describes your addiction?
Oh man, I read this question, and so I wrote a song called "Death Comes Calling." It's on the Generation Kill album. We're all gonna die, and it was like a personal. It was an autobiographical song. I wrote it about myself and what alcohol did to me. I did put a Hollywood twist on the end, um, and but you know to think about another band that wrote a song. I mean,
No, I mean, look,
or,
you're the first
uh,
you're the first
yeah.
musician I've had on this podcast. So the fact that you
I was
wrote
thinking.
the I mean that you couldn't answer that better. Yeah, I wrote a song about myself. Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna say like oh Led Zeppelin when it's like no, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. I
a
mean,
better answer. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
There are other songs. I guess I don't. I can't think of one. Maybe Nine Inch Nails has a song.
yeah,
What's that one?
but it's not gonna be a
Yeah.
better answer than the other one. Just leave it. Yeah, you're gonna get a
Okay, we'll
better
stick.
answer.
I'll
Yeah.
stick with that, dude. Yeah.
What's what's the dumbest excuse you've ever told yourself to justify your addiction when you were
When I was drinking, man, here's how I drank. I've had a rough day, man. I need a drink. I've had a
yeah.
great day. I need a drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was the excuses were limitless. You know what I mean? It was never my fault either. I got pulled over this time. I got by a cop, and I got a ticket, and I almost went to jail for drinking and driving, but he didn't give me a breathalyzer, and my headlight was out, so that's why he pulled me over, and it was the cop's fault. But I had to look at things, man. It was my fault. I was drinking and driving, and I had a headlight out. if I had taken care of the headlight out, if I had taken care of the headlight, I wouldn't have gotten pulled over. You know what I mean? It was like that was the things that I had to start recognizing, that I had a part in everything that happened, and even the things that I didn't have a part of, you know, they're just things, and they're human things that people go through. I mean, a lot of people come from divorced, fucked up families, you know what I mean? And have fucked up situations they grow up in. And they
Yeah.
don't end up an alcoholic. They don't, they find other ways. But, you know, everybody has their demons. And I just had to take responsibility for my side of the, like, you know, like just saying, like, you clean up your side of the street, and that's all you can kind of do. And that's kind of how the world is right now. It just seems like, you know, everything's pretty fucked up. But you know what, man? I'm a good friend to my friends. I'm a good son to my parents. I'm a good, you know, a good boyfriend to my girlfriend. I love my dog. I'm good to my dog. And for right now, you know, that's what I can do, man. I just can live as, you know, as best I can, and treat others around me like I want to be treated. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's how I've been living my life, and it's kind of working out. You know what I mean? I'm not shitty to people. You know, you ever been out with people and somebody's shitty to a waitress, and you
Sure.
fucking I fucking hate that person. I when you know, because I'm never shitty to a waitress. I'm never shitty to anybody in the service part aside. You know, and I remember that everybody. I have like this cognitive thing in my brain that tells me everybody's going through shit, so just be nice to them. Just be nice. Hold the door for people, let people out in traffic, you know what I mean? And you know, it's those little fucking things. When I remember having the patience of having zero patience for that kind of shit. And I was a fucking lunatic even in sobriety. This I'm, you know, I was a shitty fucking guy in traffic, and I was fucking always late, and then I realized if I just leave early, I don't have to act that way, you know. So it
Yeah.
was like those little things you turn about yourself that you know. And I'm not perfect, man. I have moments where I'm a fucking diva asshole, and I have moments where I forget, you know. But for the most part, man, I really try to just be a good human being. I mean, that's kind of the key to my happiness at this point, you know.
What do you think is the worst addiction? Do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, running the gamut. I mean, meth is really bad.
Meth.
Um, Meth is really bad. I mean, alcohol is a motherfucker. Like I said,
Yeah.
I
I think
watched
meth
my
is a
grand.
good one. Meth doesn't during Breaking Bad, I think was its peak of respect of it being bad, but now it's like I feel like fentanyl's gotten taken over some hole, and like everyone's always
Yeah,
like heroin or opiates and stuff, but meth meth is like that forgotten one where people are like, oh yeah, that one's really bad. I have like family members
yeah.
that were like speed, like
I mean,
yeah,
you know, the you know, I've been removed from it for so long that you know, I'm not in that world, so I don't really see it. I live in a, you know, in a nice neighborhood in a nice little town in Arizona, and I don't really, I see it now and again when I go into Phoenix, but you know, I don't really go to, you know, I go to a cigar bar, and the cigars are kind of,
yeah.
you know, it's like an old man thing, you know what I mean? And
No one's doing
so
meth in the cigar bars.
yeah, nobody's smoking meth and going to cigar bar.
Yeah,
They're too expensive, you know. So,
yeah,
and the guys I hang out with, the friends that I've made since moving here, man, are just normal run of the mill people who you know, and you know. But I've watched alcohol like destroy people, man. I mean, alcohol is a motherfucker because like meth and fentanyl and all the coke and all that shit, you got to work for it. You got to go find a place to get it. It's not like you can go to the fucking store and just buy it. And alcohol has that ability. And you know, I like I said, I watched my grandparents die from it, and they were smart, intelligent, you know, well respected people, and they just destroyed themselves, and they killed themselves with alcohol. Like all four of my grandparents died from alcoholism. My dad doesn't drink anymore. My sister, like not to throw them under the bus, but it runs in my family, and it's maybe in my DNA. I don't fucking know why, but I have an adverse reaction to it when it hits me. Yeah. So
What is one word you would use to describe your addiction?
a motherfucker. So it was a
Is
motherfucker,
motherfucker one
dude.
word? I don't know if motherfucker. I think it might be.
Motherfucker is one word. All
Hmm.
motherfucker would be two words, but motherfucker, it was just,
Yeah, yeah.
it was
I
just
thought
a
it was
motherfucker,
hyphenated for
man.
some reason, but yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
word that popped in my brain when you asked me, because
I had to look.
it was, you know what? I got a better word. It was a cunt. It
I,
was just a fucking cunt, man.
well,
It was just,
I looked up motherfucker to see how it's
yeah,
spelled. Like just make sure. And it's funny, like words that you know what they mean, but you don't. You sometimes you don't know the definition. So it's funny to read the definition. It just says a despicable or very unpleasant person or thing. Yeah, okay.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, look up cunt. What is cunt? It's probably the same thing.
I think it's gonna work better. I think because I don't think they're gonna say a thing. Because it says that for kind of as a vulgar slang word for a woman's genitals or person you dislike. So motherfucker's probably better because it can be a thing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
your first instinct's been right so far. What about one word you would use to describe your recovery?
Uh, roller coaster. Is that one word?
I
It,
don't know. You're gonna make me look that up. I think roller coaster is one word. Yeah. Roller
it's,
coaster. I know it might be
you know,
two. No, roller
just two
coaster is
words.
two words. All right, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
All right.
Oh no,
You know
wait.
why?
Wait, it
I'll tell
says
you why. It's because there are just even regular human beings that aren't alcoholics.
hold
The
on. It
the
can be one word. It can be two or
Oh,
one.
really?
I'm
Oh,
getting this
okay.
from Merriam's Webster. So you can do it can be one word, two words, it can be hyphenated. It's very versatile.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're gonna allow it.
It's an up and down ride, man. It is not a merry-go-round. It is a fucking roller coaster. I mean, I have had huge highs. I've had huge lows. I mean, I've had, you know, just for my own personal deal, I've had gut wrenching lows that I didn't know I was gonna. I mean, there were times I don't think I was ever actually like suicidal to where I went and got a weapon or a fucking rope or anything, but I've had days where I just didn't want to live anymore, where it was just whatever I was going through. At the time, it just felt so bad that I didn't know how I was going to go through it, and I didn't have a crutch to help. And that was the roll. Those were the lows, and then I've had highs where I'm on stage in front of 120,000 fucking people, and I'm fucking making them fucking put their fists in the air, and they're doing it because I'm telling them to. And I've
That
had
the next
moments.
question was what's your proudest moment in recovery so far? It seems like those are the kind of
No, I think the proudest moment in recovery that I had
no, I didn't
was,
mean to cut you off there. I just felt like that's what
yeah,
maybe
um,
yeah.
my proudest moment of recovery was getting on my motorcycle and riding to my parents' house and 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 talking with them like an adult and forgiving them. That was the turning point of my life where there was no longer, I wasn't living in resentment. I wasn't living in fear and loneliness and anger, because it all went away because I chose to do that. And you know someone had suggested it to me years before, and I didn't take the opportunity. It took me years to actually go do it. And man, it changed my life. I quick story. I went to go see Slayer one time, and I'm backstage at Slayer, and this guy walks up to me and he goes, "Hey man, I want to tell you a quick story." He goes, I hadn't talked to my dad in like 10 years. And I heard you tell the story of you, going and talking with your dad and repairing that relationship. And I heard you tell that story in an interview, and it made me go do the same thing. And now me and my dad go fishing once a week, and we talk, and he's in my life, and I want to thank you for that. That was dude, I started crying right there. It was so fucking just, it was just so powerful, man. And that's why I'm doing your podcast. Because if one person hears this, just one guy, and he says, "Well, if fucking Dukes can do it, I'll fucking maybe I'll give it a shot." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had people say it to me. I've had emails from people, knowing that go, dude, oh, I went and got sober because I knew you got sober. And it was like, I've had people say it to me, and I've helped people in recovery. Like if somebody reaches out to me, I will drive out of my way, to go get them. I mean my my buddy Jason, man, I when he first came and got sober, I went and picked him up every day. And it was way the fuck out of my way. And I would drive and pick him up every day, and we would talk, and we would sit, and we'd go to a diner and drink coffee. And he was struggling, and we I did this every day for a long time, and we're still friends to this day. He's one of my favorite people, one of my best friends, you know. And those kind of moments, there's so many that I could talk about that are really good moments. But i'd have to I'd have to say that my reaching out to my parents and sitting down with them was life changing for me.
And what's the worst advice someone gave you while you were struggling?
uh uh you should never be around alcohol. You should be deathly afraid of it. You should be, never go to a bar, because, if you go to a bar, you're going to end up drinking. And the truth is that wasn't the way for me. Like that didn't have the effect on me that it was supposed to have. I didn't do it out of defiance. I was able to be a bartender because I was secure in myself enough to know that I'm not going to go to work and drink. I mean, it's not like it was a way to make money. And being a good bartender, you can make a good living at. And um, it, you know, there's this thing about, like, there was a saying that said if you go to a barbershop enough, you're going to get a haircut. And I'm proof that that's not necessarily the case, man. You know what I mean? People, alcohol is everywhere. I'm in my car right now. I could walk right there and go get a drink if I choose to. And, you know, uh, but I choose not to. Like I can go to restaurants. I can go to, concerts, and I can, it's, if you put in the work and you do the things that, that, um, to do the things that just, I guess you have to be honest with yourself and your demons. And if you're honest with yourself and your demons, the demons don't have that much power over you. They'll try to get you in any way, shape, or form. Like they're always going to be there. Like my demons are still there. I'm still that fucking guy that can, just walk up to a guy in a bar and punch him in the face for the fun of it. I mean, that's kind of drunk I was. I used to start fights for fun. I mean, me and my friends were fucking crazy, and I don't do that anymore. I don't. I'm that guy is in me, but he's been held at bay. You know what I mean? And
Well, you still
and
look like somebody that would, but yeah, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I'm not even a tough guy. I mean, I'm not. I swear I did it because it was something to do, and it was fun. You know what I mean? It was just, that's the kind of fucking lunatic I was when I drank,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And last question is, what advice do you
Okay.
have for someone that is struggling?
If someone is struggling, and you you first you have to make, I guess you don't have to do anything. You need to come to the decision that you don't want to live the life that you're living. And then you have to, I suggest going to a detox or a rehab and learn the basics of living life without it, because those things were really powerful for me. Going to a detox, going to a 30-day rehab, and then going living in a house for 90 days, living under crazy rules, you know, that you had to real strict rules because I didn't know how to be a normal fucking human being. I didn't know how to live life normally. I alcohol played a part in everything I did. If alcohol wasn't involved, I didn't do it. I mean, that's just kind of how my life had ended up when I was drinking. That I wouldn't go anywhere if I couldn't drink. If I couldn't drink, I wasn't going. You know. So to learn those basic life lessons of how to live without it and how to change those things. Um, I had to learn from other people who had done it before me. And I do the same for other people. Like when someone reaches out to me, I'm there to help. I'll answer the phone at 3 in the morning. I'll if you need me, I'm fucking there for you. If you need a ride, if you whatever you need. And that was kind of how I gave back to the people that did it for me, who went out of their way to help me. You know, my friend Bob went out of his way to help me. You know what I mean? He really did. He gave me a path and he made me unafraid of a path. And I didn't do it with religion. I didn't, I didn't always follow the rules. And one of the things I learned early on was if someone gives you a suggestion or advice and you don't take it, there's a price to pay. And usually somebody who's been down that road before has pretty good advice. And when you don't take it, you're going to fall. And lessons I learned, I had to learn to live with, um, in sobriety, hurting people who didn't deserve to be hurt because I had a lesson to learn, and then I had to, you know, be man enough to go and talk to them and go, hey, I'm sorry I did that because and then have a legit reason. And I had to do it under the guise of could either tell me to go fuck myself or they could be, thank you for talking to me. And I've had it go both ways, especially when you're in relationships with people. Um, you you uh, you always play a part, and they're not always fully. It's like going through divorce. My ex-wife wasn't fully at fault. I had a part in it. You know what I mean? And I had to accept my part, and I had to admit my part. But once I did that, it all came full circle. And those are the things that when people are struggling, they're really afraid of. But I'm a walking testament that w- if you just listen to the people that come before you, you will eventually find a path to walk yourself, and you will have the strength to walk into a convenience store and eventually not know what a 6 pack of beer costs. I have no idea what alcohol costs anymore. Um, you know, uh, and that's just one of those perks of being sober. None of that is a factor in my life, and it doesn't matter to me. So when I go out to dinner with my girl, it's like, there's not a huge bar tab on top of it. It's just the food.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Yeah,
remember,
that's
I
the great
remember,
part. Yeah.
I remember spending $200 at a bar. You know what I mean? $200 for a meal because I had 10 drinks. You know, so anyway,
Well, thank you for being on the podcast, Rob. I really appreciate you being on here,
dude,
taking the time and like sharing all that. And
yeah,
hopefully we find Michael Bernstein at some point for you.
yeah,
And if you want to follow Rob on Instagram, it's Rob_Dukes. You can find him on there, and at Exodus Band Official, at Generation Kill Band. The album comes out March 20th, Goliath for Exodus. And yeah, man, I appreciate you.
yeah, dude, I appreciate you, man. I mean, I loved our conversation that we had in Arizona. Every time we've hung out, I've enjoyed our conversation, and you're really a good dude, and I enjoy your friendship.
Thanks again to Rob Dukes for being on. That was great. That was a great episode. He was very open about that. I really appreciate that. Here's Arnie. If you're watching on YouTube, Arnie's right here. He's got really bad allergies. He was just scratching his face, and I thought he was going to make himself bleed, so I had to pick him up and make him stop. Arnie, stop, please. Don't know why I'm including this in the podcast, but I'm holding on to him, so I guess I had to mention it. As always, or everybody, thank you for being a part of the podcast. We're a year in, and a little over a year now, And I do appreciate everybody that is new to the podcast and old to the podcast and in between. Um, please leave comments. Please leave comments and rate the podcast. Tell other people. And if you feel like donating to it, as my buddy Richard did again, thank you so much, Richard, for donating to the podcast. You made a nice, very generous donation. If you feel like doing that, go to forrestshaw.net. There's a button on there, and you can click donate to the podcast. And yeah, I didn't finish that sentence, but I think you got it. If you're feeling suicidal or that you might harm yourself or you're in some sort of crisis mode, make sure to dial 988 in the United States and Canada, and then go to Wikipedia if you're in another country. Type in list of suicide crisis lines, Wikipedia or Wiki, and a page will pop up, and it's got all the crisis lines and helplines by country on there. And if you know what I should do to make Arnie not have these allergies, write that in too. I'll see you guys next week. Love y'all.